To the 10th training video for CARE. This training video is going to go over lesson 10, which is self-esteem. We're going to start by looking at the lesson 10 lesson plan in the teacher manual. And you might notice here when we look at our materials, as always, students are going to need that student workbook they've been working out of. They're going to need their self-monitoring worksheet where they've been rating that identified situation every day, and then they're also going to need a self-esteem journal, and you can find that in Appendix A of the teacher manual. So make sure you have a printed copy of that self-esteem journal for each student in your group. Now, as always, we are going to start this session with the same kind of 4 steps that we've been doing in all of the previous sessions. So first, briefly start off with either 30 seconds of calm breathing or muscle relaxation. Next, go ahead and review that self-monitoring sheet with students. Make sure you're praising students for self-monitoring. If students see a significant change in their ratings, either up or down, make sure you prompt students to reflect on what might have caused that change and offer some praise and encouragement there. Once that's done, go ahead and move on to reviewing the student goal that students set at the end of lesson 9, so have them turn to that page in their student workbook and fill out the reflection question. And if students met their goal, make sure you praise them and celebrate with them, and if they didn't, that's okay. Emphasize that sometimes we don't reach our goals, but that just means we can try again. And then finally, make sure you review the homework from lesson 9. If you remember, lesson 9 was all about active listening. And so you can encourage students to share their paraphrased answers to the homework. And then if you have time, you might ask for volunteers to share when they've used good listening skills in the previous week. Okay, and once that's done, we are ready to get into lesson 10, which is self-esteem. We've got 2 lesson goals for lesson 10. The first is we will identify what self-esteem is, and the second is we'll practice self-esteem building activities. So if you have students turn to page 70 of the student workbook, it's going to introduce them to the concept of self-esteem. And we've identified self-esteem as understanding your own abilities and being proud of yourself. And so you can tell students that when they have high self-esteem, that they're going to be able to identify things that they're good at and say good things about themselves. And if they have low self-esteem, it might be hard. They might have a hard time about identifying things that they do well. It's also important to emphasize that to students that having high self-esteem doesn't mean that they're good at everything. It just means you're able to pick out and be proud of the things that you are good at. And it's also important to emphasize to students that if they have low self-esteem, that's okay. It can be really hard to have high self-esteem sometimes, and that's something that people have to work at sometimes, and that's okay. And the whole purpose of this lesson is for us to be able to help students build their self-esteem, to make themselves feel better. Next, this is towards the bottom of page 70. We've got 2 boxes, one that says high self-esteem, one that says low self-esteem. The high self-esteem box is going to list different things that high self-esteem can help you do, like try new things and stay positive even if things aren't going your way and do better at school. And then the box with low self-esteem has some characteristics of students who maybe are struggling with their self-esteem. And so go ahead and read through each of those boxes. You can either read it out loud yourself, or as usual, you can have students take turns volunteering to read. Next, we are going to have, next, emphasize to students that if they feel like maybe they have low self-esteem, that the activities in this lesson are going to help them identify things that they do well and help build their self-esteem. And if students feel like they already have high self-esteem, tell them that's okay. This is just going to make your self-esteem even stronger. And so here on page 71, we're going to have a little box here. And for this part, just to kind of get things started, we're going to have students write 5 things about themselves. And so go ahead and just have them write those things down there. It can be anything, but really try to encourage them to write positive things about themselves. And then once they're done with that, you're going to have students just rate their current self-esteem level on this scale. And so 1 would be low self-esteem, 8 would be high self-esteem, and then in the middle would be our numbers right here. And tell students that you really want them to be honest with this rating, that they're not going to share their ratings with anyone else, even you. This is just a chance for them to honestly reflect on where they are right now. And so once students are done with that, you can have them turn to page 72 of their workbook, and we're going to talk about affirmations. And so you can introduce the concept of an affirmation. An affirmation is simply just saying something nice about yourself. And let students know that this is another way that we can increase our self-esteem is through using affirmations. So a couple examples would be, I believe in myself, or I can do anything. Those are 2 examples of affirmations. And so you might kind of compare it to cheerleaders at sporting events. Their job is to get the crowd excited and to say nice things about their team. Well, when you use an affirmation, you're being a cheerleader for yourself. We've got a list of affirmations here. These are some awesome examples of different affirmations. So you can read through those, or again, have students take turns reading through them. And then have students pick 3 affirmations that they like and that they believe in, and have them list them here. So we've got our spots here. And really encourage students to pick affirmations that they truly believe in, because if they believe in them, that's going to make them even more powerful. And so they can use the 10 that were on the previous page on page 72, or they can come up, if they have their own idea of what they want their affirmation to be, they can come up with their own. But just encourage them to, an affirmation is typically short and it's a positive statement. And so have them come up or write down the 3 that they liked the best. And this part right here, this My Affirmations part, is on page 73 of the student workbook. And then once students have picked those 3 affirmations that they like and have written them down, go ahead and go over how to use affirmations. And so we've got kind of 4 common questions here, and go ahead and either read through those with students, or again, if you want students to take turns reading them, that's fine as well. Okay, and then finally, this is one of the final parts of the lesson. Go ahead and pass out that self-esteem journal to students. Looks like this. There is also an example of the self-esteem journal on page 74 of the student workbook. But essentially what students are going to do here is every day this week, they are going to write down, reflect, and write down something about today that was good, and something that they did well today. It could be something at school, it could be something at home, it doesn't matter. The point is to have them think of those 2 positive statements every day for a week. And this might be something that you want students to fill out at the same time that they're doing those daily student ratings, because it would fit very nicely into that once a day stopping and reflecting. Okay, and then finally, go ahead and have students set a goal for something that they've learned in lesson 10, and make sure that they're specific using that I will statement, and includes what the student will do and by what date. And so some examples for this week, so maybe students want to set a goal to fill out their self-esteem journal every day. Maybe they want to set a goal to say at least 1 affirmation to themselves every day. Students can pick, just as long as they're picking some skills that we've practiced here in lesson 10. Once students have filled out their goal and the steps they can take to reach their goal, briefly go ahead and review the lesson 10 homework. This right here is our I am sheet, and so again, students just need to write down their dreams, characteristics about themselves, their hobbies, and their talents. And that is the homework for the week. And then finally, as always, just make sure you are sending home those parent worksheets or parent handouts so that parents are able to follow along and know what you went over this week in care.